Hello and welcome everybody again to the Everything Websites podcast, where we talk about websites, of course. And today I have another special guest. Well, all my guests are special, and that is Willy Sommer. He's head of Webflow in Magyar, and we're going to talk about today about the Webflow playbook for not just CMOs but all marketing people and people interested in migration maybe to Webflow or Webflow in general. So without further ado, Willie, welcome to the show.
Stefan, thanks for having me. Yeah, super excited to be here. And yeah, nice.
Okay, it's great to have you here. Okay, so to get started, I first want to ask you, do you want to say something about the Magyar, yourself, your agency, before we
Yeah,
start?
sure. Yeah, so as Stefan said, as you have said already, I'm the head of Webflow at Magia, and at Magia, I basically take care of all things concerning Webflow and also all large-scale projects that go from rebranding over web design over development, also covering bigger migrations. And yeah, so this is my daily bread and butter, I would say. And a little bit about Magia. So Magia got founded in the beginning of 2023. And since then, we like almost a little bit more than 2 years ago now, we
Mm-hmm.
scaled from like 3 people in the beginning, like Max, Sina, and me. We now scale to almost 30 people and serving companies in Europe and US. Also, our team is 100% remote, spread mainly across Europe, Asia, and Africa, and by now even actually Central America. So
Mm-hmm.
pretty international, but it's also great to see. And yeah, it's a pleasure being
Awesome.
here.
Yeah, quick question. Did you guys always work with Webflow or it was just maybe from
Yeah,
recently?
so we started as a only graphic design subscription, but then I think like 1 month in, then Webflow as a subscription service got added. And from the beginning on, we always worked with Webflow because one of our co-founders, Max, he used to work with WordPress like years ago when he started with web development, but he switched to Webflow for all his companies and then also for Magia or back in the days Magic Design.
Mm-hmm.
They switched to Webflow. And since my Magic Design or Magia now exists, we always use Webflow.
Awesome. It's great to hear that you guys have experience with WordPress as well, because one of our topics would be this kind of WordPress talk. I mean, because we are facing that a lot of people are uh, you know, leaving WordPress and mostly migrating to Webflow, sometimes other tools like Framer and stuff. And to start this, I want to ask you, from your experience, why do you think marketing teams are re-evaluating WordPress?
Yeah. Just recently, I conducted multiple interviews with different marketing leaders, content marketers, CMOs, or head of marketings from mainly SaaS companies to specifically evaluate or understand what are their pain points. And also looking at the companies we have worked with that migrated from WordPress to Webflow, there are typically a few different reasons. And one is definitely the whole topic of scalability when you work with a team. So in WordPress, at least from my experience, you if you put a non-techie person into WordPress, the person might be overwhelmed quite fast. And I also hear it from different instances where like a non-techie person was working in WordPress and then accidentally breaking something. So Webflow, on the other hand, has different features to basically give you some guardrails, if you want to say so, that a non-techie person can easily, with kind of like a drag and drop mode, put together landing pages without being afraid of breaking something.
Mm-hmm.
And also for a lot of people, it sounds a little bit unimportant if you just say it out loud. But when you think about it a little bit more, at least in my opinion, it makes more sense. The whole user experience in WordPress just feels a little bit before, I don't know, it feels a little bit 2010 kind of. And in Webflow, the whole interface is just way more modern. What does not sound too important, but when you want to work with young talent, what's the case in most startups, they probably don't want to work with a tool what feels like decades ago. And yeah,
Yeah, I know that when I was looking for a tool, because I started as a designer as well, and when I was looking for a tool for the website development, I looked at the WordPress. I wasn't quite happy with how how you can organize things, how you can manage stuff. And I was looking for some other tools, found out the WordPress, the web, and was just falling in love instantly. It was much easier to understand, to use. And the top of that is just everything is so seamless. You don't need to reach out to different uh, plugin creators for support or stuff. It's just one way.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, thanks for bringing up the whole topic with plugins.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also like always like a great discussion when we talk about WordPress versus Webflow, and it's just like a security risk when you have
Hmm.
a WordPress website, and it's also like a big maintenance effort you have to put into the project. Like you need to spend so much time, dev time, development time on maintenance, but maintenance is not even moving the needle. This is just to hold the
Yeah.
status quo without having
Shouldn't
any.
even you shouldn't even be thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You shouldn't even be thinking about it. Just should be automated. And I was chatting with one head of marketing. I think she was head of marketing,
Hmm.
and this was her main concern, that they spend so much time on just updating plugins every month, and always being afraid of having any bug or something
Yeah,
on the
breaking
website because a plugin wasn't updated.
something.
I think this is like not a mind space you want to have
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do creative work.
I heard one time from one of my clients that I don't think that's true for most of the people that they just don't want to think about this stuff. The website should be something that's gonna, make your head hurt. It's just gonna be something seamless, and you supposed to think about conversion, this kind
Yeah,
of things, not
about the
too much
strategy.
about technical stuff.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay, so so I guess I want to ask how leading a team's position migration eternally. What would be actually, no, sorry, not that. Actually, some other stuff I got lost with my notes. Okay, so what happens when, for example, chief marketing officers lead and when they don't lead the team in the projects?
You mean when the CMO is leading the company to do a web to do a
Yeah, when
migration?
they make a decision on what they're gonna use and how important is their decision of choosing which tool they're gonna use for their company website.
I think it's like, of course, it's an important decision, but that, in my opinion, still comes obviously like after things or considerations in terms of strategy.
Hmm.
But still, of course, it plays a big role in an area where we have like more and more tools. I don't know, if you search for, I don't know, web design tools, graphic design tools, or whatever job you need to be, or whatever job needs to get done, you have an abundance of different tools. And I
Hmm.
think here's to find something that just works with the tools you are using already is quite nice. And one thing, quite nice, it's like a huge advantage.
Yeah.
And one thing I also really like about Webflow, what I think is a big benefit for marketers, with Webflow, as it evolves, it adds more and more functionalities that
Hmm.
you can then all have like in one tool. So, for example, within Webflow, you can do localization for different languages. You can also do A/B testing. You can also do your analytics. All of this you can do within Webflow without needing to add any other tool. And this in and for itself, I think makes it like super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's very important to choose, I mean, which tool you're going to use because that can, decide on how complex it's going to be after the website is developed. If you go with a custom code, you need to rely on developers a lot. So that the more automated, like you said, the tool is, it's easier for the team to work on some other stuff that's going to help them with convert.
Yeah, I must say, when I during the phase I was doing different interviews, I was also talking to growth consultants because
Hmm.
obviously they work with multiple marketers at the time and have even more insights in different companies. And I was talking with one, and she was a big fan of WordPress, and she also really helped me to like a good hint on the other perspective from people who actually love using WordPress. And we have had a really engaging, a really long chat, and it was really refreshing. And I think also something that you need to keep in mind is the tool is always only as good as the person using it.
Yes.
So if you have an unreliable Webflow agency or developer, your Webflow site is not going to be good, and it's not going to be a valuable asset for your company. If you have a WordPress developer or WordPress agency that really knows what they're doing and that is a really like a long-term partnership, then they would do a better job than using Webflow with a shitty agency or with a shitty developer. That's just the harsh truth.
Yes.
So I think in that regard, actually the choice of your partner that you want to grow with in the long run is actually even more important than the tool they are using. And yeah,
Yeah.
we choose Webflow as our tool because we as a partner do a good job. That is easy and fast and reliable. And yeah, so but this is just something I wanted to point out as well.
Yeah, I think you're
It always
absolutely
depends on
right.
the person setting it up.
Yes, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I had also many times in the past that people coming asking for fixes on, for example, on their Webflow website
Yeah,
because they were changing so many different developers, and now it's a mess. It's very difficult to handle
yeah,
these kind of things, and
yeah,
it's not doesn't matter the tool. But I want to talk a bit also about migration itself.
yeah.
So, well, when we talk about a successful migration, how important it is to have content planning as a part of migration?
Content planning in terms of like SEO strategy, content strategy, or you mean just having all the content collected upfront, or what do you mean?
Well, we can talk about both, but I don't want to take this too long. I would maybe focus on migration from one platform to any platform to Webflow, for example. How important is to plan this content that's going to be migrated, URLs, the existing content.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, that's like absolutely 100% important. So the biggest risk with every migration is always that you lose any SEO juice, so that your search results basically go down. This is always the biggest risk, and obviously it depends on the effort you have put previously into SEO. When you don't have like any mentionable traffic from SEO on, then of course your risk of losing business is also lower. But for most companies we work with, SEO is a really high driver for their company success or for their leads basically or for their marketing initiatives. And there the whole topic of checking all the redirects, properly migrating the content, the title tag, meta description, open graph images, and also the content in terms of blog, everything that is like written is absolutely mandatory. And also things like an SEO migration where you map all the redirects. And I think when people first hear about doing like a migration, it sounds probably a little bit more simple than it actually is, because you could also just say, okay, everything that is here on the left, I need to take it, I need to copy it, then I go here to the right, and then I paste it in. But unfortunately, there's like a little bit more to it than this, because just like a super simple example, most of the times the CMS is going to change drastically whenever we do a rebuild, and you cannot just easily download it and then upload it on the other page. So you also need to check for internal links. So you also need to check, for example, for image alt text, which are not easily downloaded all the time. So you need to keep track on those things. You need to keep track on all things that are like in the sitemap, maybe not just, and also which are in the sitemap. You need to migrate those things, and it's a lot, and you need to be really really thoughtful with it, because otherwise it can really harm your SEO juice, your traffic that comes from search engines. And yeah, Google just doesn't like it when you change anything on your website, so you need to be really really careful.
Yeah, I kind of also don't like that Google don't like animations because a lot of people like that. It's also pretty good for UX, But for example, if you have some animation on loading, I mean, when you open the page and stuff like that, Google don't like that. It's just gonna push your performance down
Yeah.
and outdated, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. One of the things that I think people also started to pay attention to is AI tools, like for example, ChatGPT or Perplexity. So I noticed that a lot of people use search functions there to, like a search tool, just like Google. So what do you think? Is that going to be maybe also some part of the future that, or maybe even now today, that's going to be starting to be implemented on a website, so that your website or client's website will show up on those search results as well?
You mean that Webflow websites are optimized for AI search?
Yeah, or maybe, yeah, I do think it's going to be also important to be optimized for that.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. But I think this is more something that is on the content side and not really on the tool side. So I think this is something and also this is such a new field, so that no one really cracked the code or doesn't even have an idea on it, in my opinion. Yeah, but I definitely think that this is going to be a relevant thing. Also, I think that with all the AI search, it's even more important to have a good conversion rate, because people are using ChatGPT more as a sparring partner instead of Googling for something. So that means automatically way less people come to your website anyway, because they get the information they want already before they even visited your website. That means the people actually ending up on your website need that. For them, you need a way higher conversion rate to yeah, to still get the same return on investment.
Yeah, I agree with you that maybe it's too early to talk about it, or maybe it's not going to be that important in the future. I have a couple of examples where people use the deep research on ChatGPT and provide them a lot of information. Among those information were the links for the websites on a certain pages. And when I did, for example, a bit more research on that, I noticed that beside most common things like SEO, I have for example, for to be able, I mean, to position better on those search results, you also need to take care about your, I don't know, schema markup, Q&A sections on a website and stuff like that. But like you said, not a lot of people maybe using it for that exact purpose, so maybe it's not as relevant right now. But yeah, one more thing I want to ask you about this is that, for example, if someone comes to you and is thinking about hiring you, or just looking for a proper platform designer, developer agency, do you know maybe what kind of questions that person should be asking to that agency or a freelancer to have a best possible outcome for them?
Definitely, this sounds like pretty basic, but it's probably like the most important thing to really check for highly relevant references. So if you are like a fintech company, ask for specific fintech examples. And also ask, if you are like interested in an actual migration, ask for case studies or showcases or references that show that someone has done this migration before, because the migration is such a complex topic. And just by reading, even I would say, even if you read the most up-to-date, fully inclusive migration guide,
Mm-hmm.
there is still always something that can go wrong, because different tools, maybe one company is using this domain provider, another one is using this domain provider. So then, for example, from specific domain providers, maybe you can't use the non www URL. And so there are so many edge cases that you can't even dream of. And this is why I think that experience in the field here is so super important. And not a lot of companies or not a lot of agencies actually pull through those big migrations. And therefore, also a lot of agencies, in my opinion, don't have the just the bandwidth or the experience that comes with doing multiple migrations.
Yeah, I know that from my experience that when you start working on that, there was always something new to learn and something that come up that you don't didn't even pay attention to before. Uh, so yeah, like you said, it's very complex. It requires to find an agency that is experienced with it. Otherwise, yeah, so many things can go wrong.
Yeah.
um, yeah, we're close to our 30-minute mark, so I have maybe a few questions more to ask you. Yeah, I know that one the people always there is a lot of things to work on the project and everything, but I think people usually get very lightly when the website is completed. So like the post launch. What do you think? What is the most important thing after the project is completed? So they to pay attention to, so that maybe something wrong doesn't happen to the website, or maybe they don't even have a proper training, so they're gonna do maybe something that's gonna harm them, or I mean their website. Any advices for that?
So definitely one thing that we always keep track, everything that is in the Google Search console.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a bunch of different post-launch checks that we do. So some of them are right after the launch. For example, we are checking if the page is properly propagated everywhere. We then check page speed. We index all pages in Google Search Console, so request indexing. And so these are like a few standard procedures after the launch. And then we check different metrics over the next 30 days as well. One of them are also the Google Search Console to
Mm-hmm.
see how the pages are indexed, if there's like any duplicated content, if there's any problems with any pages, to then really, yeah, just make Google happy essentially. And yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Also, super important that companies, when you hand over the website, it's absolutely mandatory that they get a like a handover doc with either. So for us, we always do a CMS intro where we introduce the company to the CMS, how we structured the entire CMS. If the company is new to Webflow, they get an intro into Webflow as well. How can the whole marketing team work in Webflow, get the most out of it? How does publishing blog flows work? How can they align on different workflows with different people? So how can the collaboration work?
Mm-hmm.
And then they just get a complete handover doc in Notion, how they can sustain or maintain their website. And then we are also there for additional like 30 days to support on any matters that come up that can be different questions or readjustments because they want to change something. And yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And when we are talking about these kind of things, for example, if the website is completed and but the team don't really want to become a developer or to hire a developer, how can they decide on with your help what to automate, what to delegate, and what they should be actually working on and on what topics they should give to someone else more experienced to work on? Is there any advices on how to decide on that?
Yeah, so in general, I would say whatever is your core competency, so what you know the most about, the way all the thinking happens, this you do yourself. And then what is like just blindly the execution, you can outsource. This is how I would do it. And I reckon, did that answer your question already?
Yeah,
Or
I mean, there are always more to answer to, but like you said, they should decide on what they have experienced with, and
yeah,
with these kind of things they can work on, and what they don't really know. I would always advise to not touch the design inside of Webflow where you have
yeah,
classic code and this kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, good point. And I think for this is also like really important that because we have speak about planning before,
Mm-hmm.
that you actually plan out what website is going to make me happy for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So that when scoping a project, you can already take into consideration, or maybe like in 3 months, we wanted to launch a different series of events. So then we need a resource page for that where we can showcase our events, or we wanted to start with different types of lead magnets or whatever. And then you can always build those things as components already in Webflow. Or you can, for example, either you can create like page templates where the marketer can then just like drag and drop the different components that he needs and easily build new pages without running into the risk of designing of crashing any other design. So you have like 100% design consistency at scale. And you can also, for example, use the CMS and then easily and fast create spin-off any landing pages. You can make hyper customized or hyper personalized landing pages for different for different accounts for different companies. And yeah, you have just like a lot of scalability for with the CMS when you want to customize the the user experience.
Yeah, great said. I mean, like you said in the beginning, everything is about planning. The team and both. I mean, everybody needs to think about that kind of things in the beginning, so you can plan it out, and there is no worries after that. For the end, because we are close to the end, I want to ask you what would be maybe one piece of advice that you will give to the marketing team, or maybe even chief marketing officer, or someone that is ahead of this team that thinking about new website. What would be your piece of advice for them in planning a migration?
So they know already that they want to migrate.
They know why they want to migrate.
Are they still considering if they want to migrate, or do they know already that they want to migrate?
Huh. Okay. So they know why they need this.
No, that was a question to you.
So that's a question for me. Sorry. No, I'm just saying, what would be your advice for the CMO, for example, in planning a migration? What they need to know when they want to start thinking about this, for example.
First thing, they should line out all the content.
Mm-hmm.
So over and over again, we have companies who have not webbed up the entire content of the website. I mean, like most CMS pages are going to stay the same, but everything that is like, I don't know, homepage, product pages, about us, career, and all those type of stuff, have all the content prepared because it makes the whole process of designing and development way easier.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, they have in mind the workflow that let's do the design, then we do the development, and then on the page you can just adjust the content. But when you haven't planned out the content and you know exactly what image is going to be and what written words, it just means you haven't thought through the entire strategy of the website, because otherwise you would know the content. And it happens over and over again that companies then in the development phase notice, oh, actually, I think here it would be better to have this element or this element because they didn't make up their mind earlier. And
Right.
this saves a lot of back and forth for the company and, of course, also for the partner. Speaking of partner, when you plan your website, really find a partner that you can trust, because this is just worth everything.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I think that would be. I would wrap up with this because I know migration is something that we can talk a lot. It's gonna take a while to go through all of this stuff. So I would just the idea for all this was me and you to talk about migration to maybe help people understand how this exactly process is, how complex it is. And thank you for being part of this conversation, providing your insights and thoughts from your experience on this topic. And for the end, just want to ask you where people can find you online, where you're active on social media and stuff like that.
Sure. So mainly either, of course, on our website, www.magia.com or
Mhm.
magia.com. And then, of course, on LinkedIn, Willi Sommer, you can just hit me up, follow. I mainly post about marketing and how Webflow ties into your marketing strategy. And also, we are active on YouTube, where you can, for example, follow Max, so one of our co-founders, and he shows a lot of insights into how we are building Magia.
Mhm.
And yeah, I reckon these are like the places where you can find us.
Awesome. Again, thank you so much for being part of this episode. And I hope you guys like this. Let me know what you think. If you want to think more, want to hear more stuff about migration, Webflow, whatever. And again, maybe we catch up some other time as well. Again,
Thanks for having me.
thanks. Bye, guys. See you next time.